Welcome everyone to TAM Lab number 52. Today we've got Sonny Nguyen joining us. He's going to be going through some pretty cool scripts essentially with PowerCLI to help you deploy your Skyline environment and do it consistently. So I will stop my sharing and hand it over to Sonny and you can take it away.
Awesome, awesome. So I hope everyone can hear me okay. And I will try to go slower because I find that sometimes I'm fairly fast.
Oh, sounds good.
All right. So just to let you guys know, the thing is the script that I'm going to show you today is not that it will help you deploy Skyline fast because Skyline by itself is fairly straightforward. You make the Skyline account, you have access, you deploy a Skyline collector, which talks to that account. And then of course you tie that into your vSphere, vROps, Horizon, Nsx, you name it. So that portion, I'm taking the assumption that that has already been done with your customers and such, okay? Hopefully you guys can see my screen.
Yep, I can see it.
All right. So what this script does is it takes a look at the environment, and if your customer ever have problem with Skyline, one of the pain points is connecting into either the vCenters or the Nsx or the vROps, and then figuring out what's going on, what's wrong with it, okay? Most of the problems are usually in vSphere and Skyline collector. Sorry, I lost my train of thought for a second. And I'm showing you guys this KB article. It's mostly about connection in and permission problems with the environment. So I'm basing the script out of this website. I'm sure if you guys have worked with Skyline, you've seen this before, okay? So with that in mind, is there any initial questions about Skyline collector, and what I'm gonna show you guys next?
I have a comment. So
Sure.
this, I'm not, I'm very familiar with this KB, we'll put it that way, right? Because you do need to set up all the necessary permissions and rights and basically create a role within vSphere when you're configuring Skyline. So I did reach out to, I forget who, somebody within the BU and asked, couldn't we make this an out-of-the-box role within vSphere, right? Which I thought made sense at the time. And then it could change. So we don't want to do that because there's potential that we will need different permissions as we move forward with, Skyline, and we're now collecting different things. So that's why they don't have it as an out-of-the-box role, just to give you guys some background.
Likewise, had you seen this link before, you would have realized that they've actually keep updating the link. For example, they've actually added a new sections, a new role for the Horizon portion. Just to get back to what Steve was mentioning earlier. So they're constantly updating this documentation based on, the changes that they do within the Skyline environment. Okay, so just to recap, in order to have the Skyline collector talk to your vCenter, for example, right? So let's start off with that. You need these permissions set in order to have that working. All right. What you would normally do if you just have a customer with one vCenter, you would go in, right? And you would do two things. You would first create a role and then assign an account to that role. Recommendation obviously is not to point Skyline collector to administrator because it has much more rights than you want to give it. So what I'm showing you guys here is my testbed environment running all through Horizon. I'm sorry, running through a Fusion. Okay, so first off, I've been testing this before our presentation here. So what I'll do is I'll rip these out. So for example, if you can see, I've created a local account in vSphere local and I gave it a Skyline role, right? So what I'll do is I'll rip this out. So as you can see, it doesn't exist anymore. So that account doesn't fully exist, which means the Skyline collector doesn't have access to your vCenter environment. Likewise, as Steve mentioned earlier, if you go into administration, underneath, oops, actually, it's right there. I've created a Skyline role. And in here, if you take a look, I put in all the privileges that you've seen earlier on, all right? What I'll do is I'll rip this out as well. So the reasons why I wrote this script, because I have a particular customer that has over 8 to 10 vCenters within the environment. And if I sat down with her, we took a look around, some of it is Skyline with a capital S, some of it with a lowercase, some of it with, you know, many variations. So it was inconsistent across the board. It was just based on who did it and what happened, okay? So imagine that you know, this is a vSphere environment that was attached to Skyline collector. However, someone came in, accidentally deleted the role, accidentally, you know, deleted the account that has access to that role. What that means is my customer would have to go into each individual vCenter and take a look to see if the role exists and the account exists. And then that will help her with, you know, how the Skyline collector is pulling the data and sending over to the advisory. Okay. Any questions so far?
Nope, nothing
Okay.
in chat.
Excellent, excellent. So part of this is I want to get you guys more comfortable with Skyline and Skyline Collector. And the other part is I'm trying to get you guys comfortable with PowerCLI as well. So let me show you what I've done so far. All right. And later on, I'll make this script available as well. So if you were to run the script that I wrote, I actually sectioned it off to vCenter, Skyline, Nsx, vROps. I actually have a portion for Horizon as well. That's I'm slowly adding in as well. But let's just concentrate on vCenter for the moment. I've narrowed it down to 4 different checks. One is to create the role, check the role to see if it exists there, right? Add the role, and then check the account. So earlier on, as you guys recall, you saw that I had an account and I had a role, and I deleted both of them. Just to confirm, the role doesn't exist anymore. And if we take a look, that local account with that role is no longer there, right? So let's get back to that role for a second. So this script, and I'll show you guys in detail what I've done, all right? So to create the role, all I did was I connect to the vCenter, I create a new role, I added all the permissions that's needed, which is the global settings and the anonymous, okay? And if you scroll a little further, oh, nope, that's it. So it's the name of the role and the privilege to add. Fairly simple. When you guys get a chance to try this out, you'll see that it's pretty straightforward. But the good news is that now you're comfortable of creating rules, adding rules, and changing things around with PowerCLI. So the hope here, of course, is I can show you a little bit of examples of what could be done. And then at your leisure, at your time, you guys can grow your knowledge in this space, you know, to the next level. Okay, so if I were to run the script, right? I point to my server, which is my vCenter, and then I create the Skyline account. Okay, what it's going to do is it's going to ask me for a username and password.
Hey, Sonny, what was the Skyline at the end of that command? Was that what you were going to name the role?
Correct.
Okay, gotcha.
Correct. So here's my result. It connected in as administrator. It created the Skyline account, right? Now, underneath, of course, it has its own ID and everything else. Here's the name of what it looks like, and here are all the permissions that it has with it. Okay. So if we were to take a look now, let's say we go over to global permissions, we go back to role, you'll find that Skyline's created. All right. So if you take a look, all the permissions are there. Now, you could, so here's the deal. Can you create it by doing this and then doing everything? You can. The gotcha is it's not that easy to find read-only. Now, some people would say, well, you take the read-only account, you make a copy of it, and then you add in those other 4. Yes, you could do that. Times how many vCenters? You know what I mean? So this approach is it makes life simple by saying, hey, you want that account? All right, we'll make that role for you. We'll add those permissions in for you, and you're good to go. Okay? Because we've just created through the script or you've created through the command, what you can also do is you can check the role as well. So instead of creating a role, if it's already running, right, and you just want to make sure that, hey, is that role still existing? Did anyone accidentally remove it? Here's how you find out. Keep in mind, we just created the role, okay? So as you can see, it spits out the detail that, hey, I logged in, and here are all the permissions that is provided to that. If you compare this over to the Skyline, recommendations, it'll match up. So right now, what we've done so far is we created a role, but however, that won't help the Skyline collector from talking to it, right? What we need to do now is we need to create a user with that permission, okay? So as you can see,
sorry, quick question. So do roles exist across, does that exist in the PSC domain? Meaning if you've got multiple vCenters in a enhanced link mode, you need to create the role once, or do you have to do it for each vCenter? I can't remember.
That's a good question. If it's using the same PSC, it should get that across the board.
That's
now,
what I thought. Okay.
Let me check that out to confirm 100% because ideally that's the SSO, that's the the main
right. That's what I thought.
Repository. It should be.
Okay.
Okay. So that was me showing you guys the roles, right? So the next thing I want to show you guys is to add the account to the role. Now, what you can do is you can actually right-click on here. You can create something and pull it down, right? Let me show you the easier, faster way. Let's do this. Because I've been editing this like crazy, I've forgotten some of the functions. I'm currently using vSphere local, but to be honest with you, you can use any domain you want. I find that if you put quotes around it, it keeps it all intact. So as you can see, there's the role. There's the principal account. So everything's been added. To confirm that, and it's added right on the top layer. And of course, that comes across the board in every, everything underneath it. So if we were to go back, you'll see that it says Skyline, that's the role, and that's my account. So now, that would be the account that you would use in Skyline Collector to talk to this particular vCenter. You could actually call, if you created a Skyline account to a Skyline row, you could point it to the Skyline account as well. The reasons why I did it separately, it was just to explain to you guys that, there's a Skyline row, and then there should be a Skyline account dedicated to the Skyline collector. Okay, now here's the gotcha. I noticed it depends on how the vCenter reacts. Sometimes it'll say this shows up as no. Even though if you were to go in, you'll see that it's still Skyline. And then it takes 10 to 15 more seconds. This will show up as Skyline. Don't ask me why it does that. If you guys know, tell me. But I notice sometimes it shows up that way. All right. Any questions so far on how Skyline, how I've configured the vCenter to talk to Skyline?
I guess I have a question. Have you considered creating a global permission rather than creating it for each vCenter? I guess that would be more, that'd be a different command probably, right? But that way, any vCenters you have in this single PSC domain, you wouldn't have to do it for every single vCenter. It would just be a global thing, right?
So you can create a global account, but you may still need to set the permissions for that global account inside, like, so the role still needs to exist on every vCenter. The global account could be one, but it still needs to talk to each vCenter.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, but if you create, like if you go into administration and look at global permissions, you could create a global permission and it would just inherit across the board, right?
I see. Right.
I mean, you may not want to do it at that level. You may want to do it more granularly, but just a thought.
No, that's actually a good idea. So there could be multiple reasons why you would do one way or the other. You guys tell me, well, how your customer has done this, or what you guys have experienced, because I want to learn from you guys as much as you guys are learning from me.
So I can tell you with one of my customers, we've got 4 vCenters in the same PSC domain, and we just did a global permission, and that way we didn't have to do it for every single vCenter. But I can see where you may not want to add all your vCenters to Skyline. So yeah, it's just case by case basis.
Right.
By the way, we do have a question in the chat. Can you enter multiple vCenter IPs in one command?
Not for my current script. Reason is because I made it pretty straightforward. But the answer is once I share this with you guys can have as many as you want. The only gotcha is because it not only does the vCenter pieces for this script, it also does vROps and everything else. So the coding might change drastically.
Right. So there's no reason you couldn't do it. We just have to get the right code.
Exactly. So you'd have to have a for each entry, right? As well as the string might change. You'll have multiple strings. How about that?
Right.
But yes, it could be done. And if you do, don't hesitate to share back with me and the rest of the community as well. All right. So any questions so far when it comes to the vCenter permissions settings?
Nope.
Okay. So from a PowerCLI perspective, this is already inherent in PowerCLI. So once you do install, this is fairly, it's already built in. Keep that in mind when we talk about vROps and Nsx and stuff like that. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to shift over to the Skyline collectors. Okay, so what I'll show you here is we have 2 Skyline collectors, right? We've got 222.18 and 222. All right, I may have to do this. All right. 222.18 and 28. Now you may ask, why do I have 2 different versions? Well, so if we were to log in, so let me log into that. Let me log into this. Okay.
So I've seen that behavior when the root password's expired and it needs to be changed, and you got to go through the console. I don't know if that's what it is in your case, but
I just tested it no more than 10 minutes ago.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, so that's one.
Never mind. Forget what I said.
It's my fault. How about that? The first thing I always mention is it's my fault first, and then we'll go from there.
Hey, that's my line.
So what I was going to try to explain to you guys was that one version is running 2302, which is the latest and greatest. And one, if I can actually show you guys, is running 3200. To confirm that, you know what, I don't care.
We'll take your word for it.
Yeah, well, we'll find out right now. So now let's talk about the Skyline piece. So there are multiple sections in here. I only drew out a few of them. All right, so let me show you guys one thing. All right, so anything that I wrote in as Skyline Prep, Nsx Prep, or vROP Prep, it's inherent to the Windows box that you're currently doing. Okay, so it's just installing additional pieces to connect to whichever prep that we're trying to connect to. For this particular instance, it's Skyline. So have you guys ever worked with Chocolatey?
Nope.
Okay, imagine so Chocolatey is a configuration management tool. Think of it like Ansible, Chef, Puppet, Salt, CF Engine, if anyone has gone that old. But more or less, it's a configuration management tool on top of Windows. It's fairly famous and it's fairly robust. Okay, so in order for us to talk to Skyline, what I've done is I've actually give you guys a command to install Chocolatey, a one-liner. Once Chocolatey is installed, I've also given you guys a command line to install Putty and Curl. The reasons why I need Putty and Curl is Putty is for, you guys ever worked with P-Link? So what P-Link is it's a Windows tool to SSH into a box and then run a certain sort of commands, okay? Curl, when I continue to update this code, it's also going to do invoke REST API as well as a few other things as well. And Curl is just yet another option for me to talk to any REST API. Now, the reasons why I'm showing this to you guys is now you guys not only can do stuff in PowerCLI, but you can actually incorporate, Chocolatey and a few other functionality into your code as well. Okay, I haven't seen too many presentations about this, so that's the reasons why I'm trying to share with you guys now, is because I want you guys to embrace and see how far along you can actually grow out of this space. Because this is mine, I've already installed this already, and it works. If you guys want to try it out, please feel free to try it out. Let me know what kind of problems you come across, because I'd love to get your experience on that as well. Right? Once you do, what you can do after that is you can check update for the two Skyline collectors that I have, right? So if I were to go 222.18, if I were to run this, you're right. I think this one locked me out. Yeah, interesting. That's unfortunate.
Well, good thing you have two.
Yeah. Well, the reasons why I was going to show you guys too was it's going to run the check and then to come back and tell you, hey, you've got no updates or you have an update. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And if it was that, for example, for this particular one, that it needs an update, you know what I could do? Bear with me for a second, folks. Let me try one more time, and then I could also reset it as well. Come on, let me in. Yeah. Of course, when I try to show it to you guys, that's when it breaks, right? Isn't that always the case?
It wouldn't be alive otherwise. Or a live demo.
So let me do this. Let me restore that.
Snapshots.
I I tend to break a lot of things. And I'll be honest about it. So I snapshot a lot of things to make sure I can get back to where I need to be. So while this is, let's power this bad boy back up. So if I were to say, instead of check update, install update, unfortunately for this particular one, because it's running 2302, it's going to come back say, hey, you know, I'm good, leave me alone. So let's give this a second to boot up. But the other thing you can try to do is instead of worrying about updates or worrying about anything like that, you could actually check version as well. So you can have your customer go, you know, that you could say, hey, by the way, I took a look into your advisory and it looks like you're running 2.2, right? And if they keep saying, well, you know, hey, I'm running the latest and greatest. Hey, could you do me a favor? Could you run this? Right, so go to check version. It'll spit out the current version. Okay, so let me take a quick look to make sure this bad boy is back on. Yay! Thank you.
Nice save.
Thank you, Snapchat. So, same trick as before. For 18, it's going to check, and it's saying, hey, by the way, oh, let's do this. So it's running that version. It sees that version. So let's do a install update. I think I typed that wrong. There. So if we were fast and we come here, you'll notice that it's actually doing everything for you. So it saw that it's running that version and it knows that it has a newer version. So it's starting to install, and you can see this on the command line as well. Okay. So you may ask me, why can't a customer just log in here and just do all that? Sure, of course they can. It depends on how many collectors that they have, right? My particular customer has 4 regions that they have to deal with. So if they have to start installing every one of them, this might be an easier approach for them. And for your customer as well. So any questions so far when it comes to PowerCLI, with Chocolate, with P-Link, talking to your Skyline collectors?
I got nothing in the chat.
Oh, excellent. Now, here's one of the coolest and greatest things that I've noticed within the environment. If you or your customer were ever to log into the Skyline collector, there is a section that has everything and anything that you want to do within the Skyline collector. So like if you want to change the time zone, if you want to change the networking, if you want to change the proxy, change the passwords, run updates, run checks, it's all in here. So I've come across a situation where the administrator saved the password credentials. So what they did was they enable SSH agent, and they could connect directly into the machine itself. However, similar to me, they couldn't log into the GUI. By doing this, they can still come in, they can still reset the password, they can still run updates, they can still do everything without actually going into the GUI. And then when all said and done, they're back out and life is good. So as you can see, it did the check, it did the install right after the reboot, which it's currently doing right now. It's gonna run the latest and greatest, which is 2302. Okay, so if you were to share this with your customer that, hey, by the way, you can run everything through command line if you ever want to, that by itself is more powerful than anything else that I'll show you guys today. Okay. Any questions? If not, I'll head over to the Nsx portion.
Yep, no questions.
Cool, cool. You guys are awesome. Now, don't hesitate to try these out, not only individual lines, but also the script that I'll provide as well. Now, Steve, chances are you're probably going to make this available to the public, right? Beyond TAMs?
The video, yes. As far as how we share the code, I
exactly.
would definitely think.
So
yeah.
what I'll do is I will share the code with Steve. I'll place it in a section where we can all have access to it. And then when it comes out to the public, Steve and I can figure out how to make that available. But for now,
GitHub or something.
That's part of the reasons why I'm not showing you guys where it's going to live, just because it won't help, the external users. All right, so over to the Nsx portion. So here's the deal. Nsx gets a little bit flaky, or not flaky, but questionable. As you can see, Skyline at the moment only supports NSXV, not NSXT. To make it a little bit more complicated, if you're running the latest and greatest, it has to be an auditor role. If you're running 645 and lower, it has to be an administrative role. Sometimes your customers might not notice, and they would set up the automated role even though they're 645, 43, whatever the version may be, and they're stuck that way. With this, you can tell, right? So within my code, I'm assuming you know the account, right? So let me show you. In this environment, as you can see, there is an NSXV connected into the environment, right? Likewise, the way NSX sets up permission is not the same way that vCenter sets up permission. So you have to add a permissions within NSX in this portion in order for Skyline Collector to talk to it. Okay. For this particular example, what I've done was I've created a local account with an auditor role, being that I am running the latest and greatest version. All right. So let me show you what needs to be done. So first things first, take a quick look for the Nsx portion. As you can see, there is an Nsx Prep, right? So if we were to go down, how many of you guys have worked with PowerNSX?
I know of it. I've never actually been hands-on with it.
So I've asked a lot of folks this who have started to play with and started working with PowerCLI. A lot of folks don't use PowerNSX, and I think it's a shame because A, it's very simple to install, and once you do, you have a slew of PowerCLI, PowerNSX capability within it to not only do all the functions that you would do in a GUI from an NSX perspective, but it also allows you to grow within the command line world as well. So what I'm going to show you here is once you do the install, instead of connecting to a VI server like you do with a vCenter, it'll connect to an NSX server, right? For this, instead of checking VI permission, it's going to check NSX user role. Same idea, but my point here is that here's a chance to run more PowerCLI, and here are some examples of what you can use within that space. Now, this is not a lot, and the goal for me was just to surround this from a Skyline perspective, but I'm hoping that once you guys have this installed, you could do other things within the space. There are two things that you could do. You could actually connect into the vCenter, or you could connect into the NSX server, and both would do the same exact thing. If you connect it into the vCenter, because it's tied to the NSX, you can connect in, it only asks for one password. If you try to connect to the NSX server, the weird thing is that it'll ask you for the NSX password, and then it'll ask you for the VI password too. I don't know why that is, and I'm hoping that newer versions that it'll eliminate that altogether. But so my suggestion and my recommendation is you go directly into the vCenter. Right? And then, as I showed you guys earlier, I created an account with, let's see if I can show that one more time. I created an account with an audited role. So all I'd have to do now is to check that. Oops, not the right password. It tells you the version, it tells you the Nsx server, tells you the vCenter server, and it tells you the role of what you've asked for. And so, because I was looking for, Sonny VN2, here it is. If I were to check for 3, even though I connected into the environment, it's still, it's going to bomb out because that account doesn't exist. Okay. So if you have your customer and you checked and the account that was supposed to be there isn't there, there's the reasons why, Nsx isn't reporting back to the Skyline collector. Now you could have gone in here and do the same exact check if you pay attention or do other things as well, but this is just a smoother, faster way for you to find out within seconds of what could be wrong within their environment. I will add more to the Nsx portion, but for the moment, that's what I had time for. But I can grill that out. I can share it to you guys as well. Any questions so far from an Nsx portion?
So there's a question in the chat, which I think we've kind of touched on. NSXT, is it supported? And I don't think it is as of yet, correct?
As of yet, no. That is on the roadmap for Skyline. Once it is, I will check to see what it can do, and I will add an NSXT argument section in. Likewise, if you folks have time and you started to play around with the code that I have, and you're able to get it ahead of me, don't hesitate to share it back to me. Don't hesitate to share back to all of the TAMs, because I think it'll be valuable, So my initial goal here is just to start off with something to share with you guys. I hope that, down the road, we all can work together to make it better. All right. So I want to show you guys one more thing, which is the vROps portion. I was currently working on the Horizon portion before this meeting, but I just didn't have enough time to squeeze it in. But more or less, as you get the same idea, and I'll share that as soon as I can get some code in there, okay? Here's the last bit. Here's the thing, though. If you take a look at this KB, you notice that vROps, while you could connect Skyline to vROps, it doesn't have any kind of log assist capability. In essence, it either talks to vROps and works, or it doesn't. But it can't pull any data from it other than, it can't pull any logs from it other than data. All right. With that being said, your customer has to connect to vROps via Skyline in order to pull the data anyway, right? Bear with me for a second. So what I've done was very similar to I did with NSX, and I'll grill this down the road as well. Have you guys worked with the PowerCLI of vROps?
Nope.
Yeah. So once again, this is pretty valuable. Now, earlier version, it was able to do a lot more things. I noticed that they scaled back a little bit, but still, there's still a significant amount of value to be added to your PowerCLI by incorporating this. Similar to NSX is instead of NSX server or VI server, it has its own OM server. Okay, let me show you my. No, not that one. This one. Let's see if I broke this one. Well, you know what? We know admin account works. All right. So let's just say that you connected your Skyline collector to the admin account of the vROps, and mine is .23, right? So if we were to do it'll connect in, and yeah, I already got a warning, but let's not worry about that at the moment. It's looking at the view, the user environment. It's looking at the account. It's saying that account exists, and it's fully functional. We know that because we've just logged into the environment. But had you if you set up the admin account to talk to it, that's fine. If you set up a Skyline account dedicated to just accessing the environment, you'll find it here as well. I will do bigger and better checks along the way, but at the moment, the thought is that if I showed you guys that the plugin is there, some of the commands to start it off, the hope is that you guys can grow from that. Any question, guys, when it comes to vROps?
There's nothing in the chat.
Yeah. So keep in mind, I know that I'm just touching the surface of everything here. But the key takeaway that I would want to tell you guys is hey, definitely take a look into the vROps plugin. Take a look into the Power Nsx plugin. And most but not least, take a look into the Skyline collector because there's a lot of data in there that you can leverage. For me, I'm still working this and I'm still trying to make it better. As I share this out to you, don't hesitate to give me recommendations on what you think will make it better. But Steve, from my standpoint, this was what I want to show to the community to start everyone off.
Yeah, no, this has been awesome. I think what we should do is put it on the sample exchange up on code.vmware.com. That would probably be the best place for it. Okay. The other thing I'll remind everybody as you're getting more comfortable with PowerCLI, don't forget to leverage the code capture feature within vSphere. So if you're looking to do something that you typically do every day in vSphere and you don't know how to get started with it, they have a new feature basically where you can record the things you're doing and it will spit out the code, right? And it may not be perfect, but it'll at least point you in the right direction. So it's a great way to kind of get you going as far as PowerCLI.
Yeah. And if you come across any questions, concerns, it doesn't have to be Skyline, but if it's PowerCLI, any of these plugins, don't hesitate to reach out to me. If I already have the answer, I'll be more than willing to share. If I don't, I probably won't sleep at night, but I'll figure it out.
And Sonny, are you on Twitter, by the way?
No. So I'll be honest. I used to work for the federal government, so I shy away from all social activities.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Alrighty. Anybody else got any questions or comments? All right. Well, thanks so much, Sonny. This has been really cool.
Awesome. Thank you for having me, for giving me a chance to show off some stuff.
Absolutely. All right, everyone. Have a great week and take care.
Bye, everyone.